Alright, y'all, I'm back, and today I got some major sauce for you. But first, I got a question. Have you ever mastered your track before? Have you ever put anything on your master instead of a soft clipper? Have you always found mastering to be this really daunting task that almost seems like you need a real professional to do it? If any of those questions I just asked ran in your head, definitely stay tuned, because I'm about to teach y'all how to master your beats with Ozone 9. So the only reason I'm doing this video today is because I want to prove to y'all that you can really get a good master in the box at home with just Ozone 9. I personally think it's important for us independent artists and beat makers to be able to learn or at least know how to mix and master our tracks. Because one, it's cost effective, and two, you really up your knowledge and your ears. And when you get into a room or a situation with somebody where you talk about mastering or they talk about gain staging or something like that, to be able to have that conversation and create that relationship is definitely what's going to help push you forward in your career. I'm going to show y'all some things about Ozone 9 that I've learned. I'm going to show you guys the way to get a pretty good and pretty professional master from just Ozone 9. So let's go ahead and get into it. I made this beat using all ProducerGrind sounds. I used drums from the Whip Up drum kit and the Season 1 care package kit. And also I used the melody is stems that come from the 24K Mood guitar sample pack if you haven't copped that yet on our website. Super fire. Definitely was able to cook this up really fast with the tools I had. So I'm going to play y'all a preview of the beat. And just so you guys know, all I got is a soft clipper on my master. So, quick things before we get into Ozone. Quick thing about my mix that I definitely recommend you guys do is once you guys have all your sounds, definitely organize your project. I like to put things into buses before I go into Ozone, just because when I'm in Ozone, if there's certain elements to me that are a little too loud, if there are elements that are a little overbearing or something like that that I want to tweak, I'll be able to gain stage them individually as their own element. These are my three groups: drums, melodies, and an 808 bus. That's it. That's all going into my master, and all my master, like I said, right now it's just a soft clipper. So before I open Ozone, the thing I want to do is create headroom so that when we master, we're able to clip and maximize our sound and bring up the level, you know, while maintaining dynamics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. For Mac, you hit Command and you just drag over the ones you want. I'm going to drag over all three of my buses and I'm going to bring them down -6 dB. So I have -6 dB of headroom to master. Usually what I do, since my drums are at 0, like straight 0, I'm going to just watch for them to go to -6. And then I should have a lot of headroom to master in. The next thing you want to do is find a section. So maybe find like the hook and loop a section. Even though there's a lot of dynamics going on throughout your track and everything, when you're mastering, you want to just really focus in on the loudest part of your song, or the part of your song where most of the stuff is happening, right? I'm going to turn off my soft clipper and I'm going to turn on my Ozone 9. So this is Ozone 9. This is just the blank chain from scratch. I'm going to show y'all the quickest way to get a master without having to worry too much about all the guessing work. Ozone has this thing called the Master Assistant that is actually a great starting point for a lot of masters. This is the Kyle Beats way to master, and it's just like this: 1 and 2 clicks. And now when you, after those 2 clicks, you're going to have waiting for you to play audio. So it's pretty much waiting for you to play your song. And once it plays your song, it's going to build a little mastering chain based around what it hears. All right, so once it's done, you pretty much have a starting master chain. It starts you off with a EQ, a dynamic EQ, and a maximizer. If you're tired of using a soft clipper on your master, you should do your master assistant. And then another thing you could do is just bring the ceiling all the way up to 0 so that we're clipping right at 0 dB. I'm going to bypass it. I'm going to A and B it so you guys can see just what 2 clicks did to your master. All right, so now I'm not ending the video here because even though this is a great starting point, this is still, to me, a demo master. This is still a rough master. I really want to dive deep and get into my own personal master built around my track. I'm going to give you guys real sauce today. So I'm going to delete all these and start from scratch. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an equalizer. And with this equalizer, I'm just going to do a few things. I'm going to stay in digital mode or linear phase mode. So with my first point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a high pass frequency sweep to make sure to find the sweet spot for my low end and to get rid of any unwanted or any unnecessary information that we don't need. So I pretty much got rid of everything under 38 hertz. And as you can see, I didn't completely get rid of it. I just did a low shelf. And I did that so that we can still have a nice warm low end that feels solid. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find any raining points or harsh frequencies with my with this bell curve right here. So I'll just bring it up and sweep around till you find any frequencies that seem harsh. And to tighten that bell, just use the scroll wheel on your mouse, and it'll tighten that bell. So I did a little bit of a bell dip around 2500 hertz. Did about 1 dB of gain reduction. All right, so the next thing we want to do is create a high shelf to eliminate some high frequencies. Now, I know that sounds weird for a master EQ, but it's going to make sense later because what we're trying to do is reintroduce that high end later with more dynamics. So this is doing this EQ and just doing a low shelf is actually going to give us more dynamics to play with later. So I go over here to my high shelf, back sandal. All right, and now I know it sounds weird and it may sound a little dull, but this is seriously all we need to move forward. Like I said, we're going to introduce those high frequencies back with excitement and imaging and things like that. But now that I have my EQ set and I have the kind of the shape for my master that I want, next thing I want to do is add dynamics. What the dynamics is doing is it's adding multi-band compression to our master. And in order to make sure that our multi-band compressor works to its fullest capability, we have to hone in our low, mid, and high frequencies. So right here, you're able to create these points to hone in the certain frequencies. So start with your cut at around 200 hertz, first cut. So the next point we want to make after that is around 12K. And this is just leaving our high end with a huge mid-range, which is really nice. So, and the thing we want to focus on is our mid-range, since that's where a lot of the best stuff is happening. The snare, a lot of the melodies and things like that, percussions, they all sit in the mids, and we want to make sure that those are accentuated well. First thing I want to do is I bring my ratio down to like 1.7, 1.8, whatever works fine for you. Medium slow attack and a medium fast release, okay? And then after that, you press this auto gain feature. It automatically adjusts gain to compensate for changes in level. So basically, if there's any compression, it compensates, or any dynamic processing, it compensates for the level of it. The next thing that's really important is to make sure that you're on RMS mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purposely squash this to find the sweet spot of my compression and to see what it's actually doing. Now that I see what my compression is doing, as you can see, I adjusted that knee to bring in back some of that clean signal. And then now I'm just going to adjust my compressor and follow these numbers right here on the bottom till I achieve about -3 to -4 dB of compression. Cool, it seems -36 is our good spot. And then I'm going to adjust this auto gain to make the mid-range tighter. So we're losing signal from our compression. This auto gain is going to bring some of that back. Yo, and the biggest gem throughout all of this that you guys need to know is to use your ears. How you see me adjusting levels and everything, I definitely recommend taking notes and maybe following along if you have Ozone 9. If not, and you're using this plugin or using any other mastering or mixing plugin, the best thing and the secret to them is to use your ears, because once you use your ears are going to know where you want your beat to sound. Your ears are going to know, and you got to trust them to ensure that you get a good master. So use your ears. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to close my eyes and adjust the gain while I'm closing my eyes, and adjust that dB till I find that perfect dB spot that sounds good to me, like this. And just like that, we got an amazing, tight sounding, really forward mid-range. This is without. And with. So since we got rid of some of the high end and high frequencies in our EQ in the beginning, we're going to bring those back with the dynamics. So the compression right here is already pretty good and set. It's already at RMS and everything. What the thing we want to do is just like what we did before with the mid-range. We're going to close our eyes and we're going to mess with this gain. And if we mess with this gain, we're going to try to find the sweet spot where we think our high end sounds the crispiest and has a lot of good transients. All right, so I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to listen until I find the sweet spot for my high end. And so after we set our dynamics and we set our multi-band compression for our track, the next thing we're going to do is going to create the stereo image and the stereo spectrum of the sound. and also going to excite that stereo image. So I'm going to go in this order. I'm going to add an exciter and then an imager. Okay, now you're going to skip the exciter for now. We're going to come back to it. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the imager first. So for this one, I'm going to do 4 frequency bands. First frequency band is going to be between 0 to 200 hertz. Next one is going to be between 200 and 1.2 kilohertz. We're going to make another point from our 1.2K to 12K. And you can adjust this. Actually, I'm going to bring this over to 2 kilohertz so we have a more wider mid-range going on. So first thing I want to do is I want to turn on the stereoize button to make sure that we do have a stereo effect happening. And this milliseconds knob right here affects the character of the effect. So I've found that 8 milliseconds, 6 to 8 milliseconds is really good, just depending on your track. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this low end right here and I'm going to bring it completely mono. And as you can see, compared to this, as you can see, there's a lot of phasing going on in our polar sample right here. You see there's a lot of phasing going on. Now we want this to be really nice and center and mono. The next thing we want to do is we want to add a little bit of width to our low mids right here. This is really going to be a lot of the kick, a lot of that really nice low end punch. So once you find a nice sweet spot, do the same thing for your band number 3. You can see this is where a lot of the cool high-end information is happening, like the synths, the keys, the guitars, vocals if you have them. And then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my high-end down at almost mono. When you bring this down to almost mono, it really glues in that high end. See, when we did that, it made it a lot tighter, and that's what we want. So let's go to back to our exciter. Do the same points. Right here, I'm going to start with the mid-range. Since that saturation was a little intense, I just brought that amount down a little bit, and now I'm going to adjust my mix to my liking. Same thing with this band. We're going to add a triode and adjust our amount in mix. So with our high end, we're actually going to go to our mid side mode and make sure that we're only affecting the mids, since in our imager, we brought all of our high frequencies almost mono. And since it's our high end, I really want them to be nice, crispy, and tight. So I'm just going to bring my amount all the way up and adjust my mix. We're getting a lot more of that high end of the snare and the clap right there. I'm just going to A and B this just so we can see where we're at. Cool. I think we're sitting at a good spot right now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a maximizer. And the maximizer is the replacement for the soft clipper. Even just throwing a maximizer on your master makes a huge difference. First thing I recommend is that you put this on the modern mode. I'm going to bring my threshold up, link my threshold and ceiling together, and bring it all the way down and squash it on purpose. The reason why I'm doing this is to see how the clipping is affecting the sound of my track. So So it's definitely doing a lot. It's squashing it. We pretty much got rid of all the transients. I'm going to bring in some character to see if I can get any clean signal back. We're definitely getting there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this transient emphasis to see if I can bring any of the transients back. We're definitely starting to get them a little bit. I've noticed with hip hop that works really well with this is if you have a fast character, it really just works well with hip hop. So until I find a spot that sounds pretty good to me, I'm now going to unlink them and bring my ceiling up to like about -2 dB. Now that instantly just added loudness to our track and maximized it. The thing I want to do now is reintroduce some of that low end since we squashed it with the clipper. Ozone has this great thing called low end focus that does this exact thing. I'm going to hone in to about 200 hertz. It's going to be my kick, my 808, all that stuff. And also making sure that you're on mid-side mode. We don't want to be affecting the sides of our bass. Our bass is only sitting in mono. Just press this listen button, and when you turn up the contrast, you'll see what it's actually adding to the signal. Find a good sweet spot to your liking, and once you have a good feeling of it, this one is more of a feeling. Like if you have a good feeling about where your bass is sitting right now, bring up that gain so it's really booming. And this is what it would be adding basically. And I am hearing a little bit of our low snare, and I don't want that, so I'm gonna bring this down to 110. Now we're really only affecting our 808 and bass and low end of our kick basically. So wow, you can really feel that. So I'm going to play it with and without the low end focus. It definitely brought that 808 back into my headphones. Sounds clearer, feels better. If you're listening on speakers, you're definitely going to feel that. So for that one, it's more of a feeling. So since we did bring some gain back in with our low end focus, I'm going to go back to my maximizer and actually give myself another dB of headroom since we have more gain to play with. That sounded really loud, and the next thing we're going to do to bring it all together is add a vintage limiter. As you can see, this is already doing great work. I've noticed with hip hop and beats, a low character works really well because it's really fast. And then play around with these modes until you find one that you like. I've noticed the tube one is definitely the most smooth. All right, so now let's listen to our master bypassed. And after. So as you can see, Ozone 9 just added so much beef to our track and really made our track feel more glued, more full, more wider, and louder. Make sure you're working at a pretty slow sample rate so that your computer's able to handle all this. But say you have a huge project with lots of crazy plugins and contact banks and stuff like that, and it's just taking up a lot of CPU. I recommend bouncing stems and then repeating this process again and doing stem mastering. What do I gotta say before I end this video? Shout out to Shout out to the Headass gang. Shout out to the Discord gang. Make sure y'all go join the Discord down below. We're already at over 2K members. Killing it in there. Shout out to the whole team. ProducerGrind has got a lot of sauce coming for y'all in December. The team has been cooking up nonstop. So make sure y'all stay up. Okay, do not sleep. We've got a lot coming. I know a lot of y'all be rewatching this video a couple times, so get to it, take your notes, and I hope y'all learned something, man. Stay blessed. Peace.